This happened about 3 years ago when I was renting a strictly average ranch-style house with two of my friends from university. It was an older building, probably built in the 70s, with a layout that felt like a maze. My room was at the very end of a long hallway, isolated from the living room and kitchen. The defining feature of my room was a small, waist-high door in the back of my closet that led to a crawlspace running under the roof. The landlord told me it was just for insulation access and that nobody used it. I threw a heavy box in front of it and forgot it existed. For the first few months, everything was normal, but around November, I started hearing noises. At first, it was subtle, just the sound of wood settling or what I assumed was squirrels running across the roof. But then it got specific. I would be lying in bed around 2 a.m. and I'd hear a slow, rhythmic dragging sound coming from inside the wall behind my head. It sounded like heavy fabric being pulled across rough plywood. I told my roommates, but they laughed it off, saying I was just paranoid from watching too many horror movies. One Friday night, my roommates were out at a bar, and I stayed behind to study for midterms. The house was dead silent. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard a distinct thump come from my bedroom down the hall. It wasn't the house settling. It was the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. My stomach dropped. I grabbed a steak knife from the counter. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped its hand. Crept down the hallway. I reached my bedroom door, which I had left open, but now it was pushed almost shut. I didn't call out. I didn't ask who's there. I just kicked the door open and flicked the light switch. The room appeared empty. But then I noticed the closet door. I always kept it clicked shut, but now it was slightly ajar, and the heavy box I had placed in front of the crawlspace hatch had been slid aside. That's when the smell hit me. It was a bimetallic stench, like old sweat and rotting meat. I approached the closet slowly, knife raised. Suddenly, the little crawlspace door burst open. A man, gaunt and pale, with matted hair, lunged out at me. He didn't scream. He was completely silent, which was infinitely more terrifying. He scrambled out on all fours like an animal. I swung the knife wildly, missing him but forcing him to recoil. He scrambled past me, knocking me into my desk, and bolted out of the bedroom. I heard his heavy footsteps pounding down the hallway and out the back door. I slammed my bedroom door, locked it, and called 911 immediately. When the police searched the crawlspace, they found a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers from our kitchen, and a small peephole drilled through the drywall that looked directly onto my bed. He had been living in the walls for weeks, watching me sleep every single night. They never caught him. I moved out the next day. To this day, I can't sleep in a room if the closet door is even slightly open. I've always prided myself on being I grew up in a rough city, so I usually know when something feels off. But this incident bypassed my radar because it preyed on my sense of safety in my own home. I live in a quiet suburb where everyone knows everyone, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked during the day. It was a Tuesday evening, around 8:30 p.m. It was pouring rain outside. I was watching TV when there was a frantic knocking at my front door. Not a police knock, but a desperate, rapid banging. I looked through the peephole and saw a man wearing a reflective orange vest and a hard hat. He looked soaked and terrified. I opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain lock on. He started speaking immediately, breathless. He told me he was from the gas company and that their sensors had detected a massive, lethal gas leak coming from my property. He said the levels were critical and he needed to come in immediately to locate the source and shut off the main valve before the house exploded. The urgency in his voice was convincing. My adrenaline spiked. I started to undo the chain lock, my hand trembling, but then something made me pause. I glanced past him to the street. There was no utility truck, just a beat-up, dark sedan with no markings, idling with its lights off. "Where's your truck?" I asked, my hand freezing on the lock. He didn't miss a beat. It broke down a block away. "Look, we don't have time for this, ma'am. You are in danger, open T-door." His voice shifted from professional concern to aggressive command in a split second. I looked at his uniform again. The orange vest was generic, no company logo, no name tag. The hard hat looked brand new. "I'm calling the gas company to confirm," I said, and tried to close the door. He slammed his body weight against the door, trying to force it open before I could latch it. The chain held, but the wood frame cracked loud enough to sound like a gunshot. I screamed and threw my full weight against the door, managing to click the deadbolt into place. "Open the door," he roared, no longer pretending. He started kicking the base of the door, screaming obscenities. I ran to the kitchen and dialed 911. Through the phone, I could hear him still pounding on the door for another 30 seconds before he abruptly stopped. By the time the police arrived 5 minutes later, the dark sedan was gone. The police confirmed that there was no gas leak and no work orders from my neighborhood. They also told me that a similar ruse had been used in the next town over, where a family had let the worker in, only to be tied up and robbed at gunpoint. If I hadn't looked for that truck, I would have let a monster right into my living room. I am a creature of habit. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, so I spend 90% of my time in my apartment. I live alone on the 3rd floor of a secure building. You need a key fob to get into the lobby and another for the elevator. It's supposed to be impenetrable. About 6 months ago, I bought a high-end Bluetooth speaker system for my living room. It is one of those systems that automatically connects to your phone when you walk in the door. One evening, I was sitting on my couch, reading a book. My phone was in the kitchen charging. Suddenly, the music from my speakers cut out. A few seconds later, a voice came through the speakers. It wasn't a phone call. It was a recording. It was a recording of me. The audio was clear. It was my voice, singing in the shower. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I haven't sung in the shower in years. And even if I did, who recorded it? Before I could process it, the audio changed. It was the sound of me talking on the phone to my mother, a conversation I had just 2 days prior. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed my phone. Bluetooth was disconnected. My phone wasn't the source. I looked at the speaker status light. It was solid blue, meaning a device was currently connected and streaming. I opened my Bluetooth settings to see what was paired. The list showed my phone, my laptop, and one other device simply named Admin's iPad. I don't own an iPad. The audio on the speakers shifted again. This time, it wasn't a recording. It was live audio. I could hear heavy breathing. Then, a voice, a deep, raspy whisper said, "You looked really pretty in that red dress today." I had worn a red dress that morning to a coffee shop. Panic took over. I ripped the power cord of the speaker out of the wall, plunging the room into silence. But the silence was worse. Bluetooth has a range of maybe 30 feet. Whoever was connected to my speaker wasn't a hacker across the world. They were within 30 feet of my living room. I grabbed a heavy metal vase and checked the hallway. Empty. I checked the bathroom. Empty. Then, I realized my apartment shares a wall with the unit next door, which had been vacant for months. I called the building manager and the police. When they opened the vacant apartment next door, they didn't find anyone, but they found a setup that made me physically sick. A sleeping bag, empty takeout containers, and high-tech listening equipment drilled into the shared wall. But the worst part was the iPad left on the floor. It was filled with photos and audio recordings of me inside my apartment, dating back 3 months. The squatter had cracked my Wi-Fi password and had been digitally mirroring my life, watching and listening to everything I did. The police dusted for prints, but the guy was a ghost. I broke my lease and moved back in with my parents the next day. I don't use smart devices anymore. If it connects to the internet, I don't want it in my house.